The Pacific Theater, a vast, unforgiving expanse where the jungle itself was a silent, lethal enemy. For the Imperial Japanese forces, especially on isolated islands like Guadalcanal, New Guinea, and Rabaul, the war quickly devolved from an ideological conflict into a desperate, primal struggle for survival. Japanese supply lines were stretched thin, often non-existent. American submarine warfare and aerial interdiction meant that resupply convoys, dubbed Tokyo Expresses, rarely made it through. The official Japanese field ration, dried rice, soy paste, and perhaps a small piece of salted fish or plum, omebashi, became a ghost of the past. The true horror began when the rice ran out. Pilots and soldiers, once symbols of imperial might, were reduced to foraging. They ate leaves, roots, snails, and whatever the jungle offered. We were talking about consuming jungle grubs, protein-rich, yes, but a sign of absolute, crushing desperation. This wasn't survival. It was slow, humiliating starvation. Our story now focuses on a few isolated incidents, moments of profound shock that occurred when a surviving, captured Japanese airman first encountered the American supply machine. Imagine a pilot, thin from months of starvation, who is brought to a forward operating base. He expects torture, certainly not a meal. But what he is offered is a sea ration, and the contrast is devastating. Let's examine the sea ration, the standard field meal. It typically consisted of a meat unit, like meat and beans or pork and beans, and a B unit crackers, a sugary beverage powder, and cigarettes. The sheer weight of the cans, 340 grams each, and the fact that the main course was meat and beans, a full, hot meal, was staggering to a man accustomed to rice gruel. But the K-ration was the true symbol of American ingenuity and luxury. Designed for paratroopers and highly mobile units, the K-ration provided 3 separate meals: breakfast, dinner, and supper. Breakfast included canned veal or ham and eggs, compressed biscuits, and an instant coffee packet. Dinner had canned cheese or ground ham, bouillon powder, and dextrose tablets. And supper often featured pork, beans, or even a small can of fruit cocktail. Imagine a man who hasn't tasted pure sugar in months, possibly years. In the American rations, sugar was abundant. Dextrose tablets, powdered drink mixes, and the infamous Hershey's Ration D bar. This wasn't a standard candy bar. It was a dense, highly caloric block of chocolate engineered to not melt in tropical heat and designed to taste slightly better than a boiled potato, to prevent soldiers from eating it too fast. This was the true shock. Americans didn't just meet the caloric minimum. They included morale boosters. Cigarettes, chewing gum, even toilet paper. These were items completely absent from the Japanese doctrine, which prioritized discipline and self-sacrifice over comfort. To the Japanese pilot, who was taught that softness led to defeat, this level of luxury was baffling. A simple tin of fruit cocktail, a small can of peanut butter, or even a can of processed cheese was a moment of deep philosophical reflection. The Japanese military had led its soldiers to believe that their Spartan existence was a moral superiority. The American ration proved that industrial superiority was the ultimate moral killer. The American ration was not merely food, it was a logistics triumph. In 1944 alone, the U.S. military produced over 500 million K-rations and billions of C-ration cans. This mass production was a result of the arsenal of democracy. Factories that once made cars were now churning out perfectly sealed, vitamin-enriched meals. The Japanese pilot, who once boasted of his spiritual strength, was forced to confront the harsh reality of American industry. This abundance meant that U.S. troops could fight harder, longer, and more effectively because they were simply better fed and healthier. A well-fed soldier is a better soldier. On the Japanese side, malnutrition led to rampant disease. Dysentery, beriberi, and malaria wiped out more troops than enemy bullets. In the pilot's mind, the realization must have been crushing. If the Americans could maintain this level of supply and comfort on the front line of a distant war, what chance did the resource-starved Japanese empire have? The small can of ham and eggs was not just breakfast. It was a declaration of total economic and logistical war. The immediate effect on the captured soldiers was profound. While adherence to the Bushido Code meant few officially spoke out, the personal diaries and later testimonies of Japanese prisoners of war often referenced the shock of the American rations. They described the food not just as better, but as something from another world. Some accounts highlight the psychological weapon of American abundance. U.S. forces sometimes intentionally left rations near Japanese positions. To a starving soldier, finding a full can of peaches or a chocolate bar was a powerful, non-lethal propaganda tool, undermining the narrative of Japanese moral superiority and resolve. It created doubt where only fanaticism once reigned. The shock extended to how the food was eaten. The Japanese were used to sharing communal rations. Americans ate individually, opening a whole can just for themselves. This highlighted a cultural difference: the Japanese collectivism versus the American individualism, a contrast made stark by the quantity of available food. The story of the Japanese pilot and the American ration is a microcosm of the entire Pacific War. The American ability to project industrial might across thousands of miles of ocean, to not only sustain its soldiers, but to provide them with comforts, was the deciding factor. The battle was won not just by bombs and bullets, but by assembly lines and canned peaches. For the captured Japanese airmen, that moment of biting into an American chocolate bar after surviving on jungle grubs for months was a sudden, violent realization. The war was lost before the first shot was fired. It was lost in the factories of America. What other elements of American industrial might shock the Axis forces? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories of World War II.